You have been told that a hard heart is a spiritual problem, that the person who stands in prayer and feels nothing, who recites and finds only silence, who reaches and finds only their own reaching, is someone who has drifted, who needs to try harder, who has accumulated distance and now has to close it. This is the standard diagnosis. Al-Ghazali disagrees with it, not partially. He disagrees with the diagnosis itself, the category, the causal direction, the entire framework. In the Ihya Ulum al-Din, he writes about what he calls the hardness of heart, and everything he says about what it actually means and what it actually requires will ask you to put down what you came in carrying. 5 words, 5 inversions. Each word is a diagnosis you already hold, and each inversion is what Al-Ghazali says the diagnosis is actually pointing to. Qaswah, hardness of heart. The word itself, the standard reading of Qaswah, it is the state of spiritual absence. The heart has gone cold. Distance has accumulated. The person who has Qaswah has drifted from something they once had, and the hardness is the distance made tangible. Al-Ghazali opens his chapter on Qaswah by dismantling this sequence. He says, the assumption that hardness equals distance is a misreading of the symptom. Here is his actual observation. A heart becomes hard not when it has wandered far from something, but when it has been carrying something too heavy for too long without anywhere to put it down. Think about what this means structurally. The person who has never tried, never cared, never reached, that person does not have Qaswah. They have absence. Absence and hardness are not the same condition, and they do not come from the same place. Qaswah requires history. It requires that you once felt something real, that you reached for something at cost, that you held something under pressure for a long time without release. Stone is hard because it has been compressed, not because it is empty. First inversion. Qaswah is not the sign of someone who stopped caring. It is often the condition of someone who has been caring, under pressure, without release, for a very long time. Muraqabah, watchfulness, the practice of observing the interior state, the standard prescription for Qaswah. Break through it, cry more, attend a gathering, find an experience that creates feeling, force the heart soft through sustained effort and exposure. Al-Ghazali reverses this completely. He writes in the Ihya that forced softening, Talayyun manufactured through technique rather than recognition, produces a temporary state that hardens again faster than before, like ice that melts under artificial heat and refreezes the moment the heat source is removed. The hardness returns, and it returns deeper. He says, the cure for Qaswah is not Talayyun, it is Muraqabah, watchfulness, honest looking, before anything else. Not, what do I need to do to feel something, but what is actually in here? Because Al-Ghazali's observation, the thing most discussions of Qaswah never reach, is that the hard heart is not empty. It is full of exactly what cannot be looked at directly. Grief that was never named, prayers offered and apparently unanswered, love sustained at great cost and never acknowledged, anger at God that felt too dangerous to admit. A heart that will not soften under pressure has not stopped feeling. It has stopped being able to afford to feel. Muraqabah is the practice of sitting with what is actually there, without immediately trying to resolve it, manage it, or convert it into something more presentable. Second inversion, the cure is not an action, it is an attention, and that attention, honest, unmanaged looking, must come before the softening, not as a tool to produce it, as the condition that makes it possible. Talayyun softening. What everyone with Qaswah is trying to produce, the standard sequence, work on the heart until it becomes soft. Then the spiritual life can proceed. Al-Ghazali's inversion, Talayyun is not the precondition, it is the result, and it cannot be forced into existence because it is not something you do. It is something that happens when two other things have already occurred. The first is Muraqabah, seeing honestly what is actually inside the Qaswah. not what you wish were there, not a managed, presentable version, what is actually accumulated in the hardness. The second is what Al-Ghazali calls the arrival of something that Muraqabah makes possible. Khashya, usually translated as fear of God. It is not fear. The root means awe. The specific condition of standing before something so vast that the self becomes briefly, clearly aware of its actual size, not the abstract knowledge that God is great. The sudden, undefended experience of the actual scale of what you are in the presence of. The standard sequence: first soften the heart through practice, then Khashya becomes possible. Al-Ghazali reverses the direction entirely. He says, look at the Qaswah honestly. See it for what it is, name what is inside it, stop managing it, and simply witness what has accumulated there. And something happens in that recognition that no technique or practice can produce. Because Khashya is not an emotion you manufacture, it is the state that arrives when you suddenly see the actual scale of what is in front of you. And a person who has been carrying a hard heart for years, who finally looks at it clearly, who names what is inside without softening the description, who witnesses honestly what has been held at great cost, is standing in front of something vast, not God at a distance, God in the specific weight of what this particular heart has been carrying, without anyone asking it to put it down. Fourth inversion, Khashya does not require a soft heart. It arrives through the honest recognition of the hard one. And that recognition, Muraqabah without management, is where the sequence actually begins. Inkasar, the shattering, the breaking of the hard heart. The standard reading, something shatters the hard heart from outside. An extreme experience, a loss, a moment of overwhelming spiritual intensity, something that cracks it open. Al-Ghazali's final inversion is the deepest. He uses the word Inkasar, not kasara. This matters in Arabic grammar. Kasara means it broke something. Inkasar is reflexive. It broke itself. The agent and the object are the same. No external force required. He insists that the real Inkasar, the kind that produces a lasting change in the interior condition, cannot be forced from outside. You cannot make someone's heart shatter into the right state. External pressure that cracks a heart can also harden the pieces. What Muraqabah produces, what honest recognition produces, what the arrival of Khashya produces, is the interior condition in which the heart, having been seen, having been witnessed without being managed, finally breaks from the inside. He writes, Al-Munkasiru qalbuhu aqrabu ilallahi min kulli mateen. The one whose heart has shattered is closer to God than anyone whose heart remains intact. The intact heart he is describing is not the soft heart that has been gently cultivated. It is the heart that has not yet undergone Inkasar, that is still holding everything in the compressed, hardened state, intact, unbroken, and therefore still sealed. The shattered heart is not the damaged heart. It is the one that finally broke from the inside, and in breaking, released what had been sealed in the stone. Fifth inversion. Inkasar is not what happens to you. It is what you become capable of. After Muraqabah, after Khashya, after the honest witnessing that Al-Ghazali says the entire sequence is building toward. 5 words, 5 inversions. The sequence assembled. Qaswah is not absence. It is accumulated pressure in a heart that has been carrying something real. Muraqabah is not preparation for the cure. It is the beginning of the cure. Honest attention without management. Talayyun is not the precondition. It is the result of being willing to look. Khashya does not require softness first. It arrives through the recognition of the hard heart, honestly witnessed. And Inkasar is not what breaks you from outside. It is what becomes possible from inside once the other 4 have done their work. Al-Ghazali's final word on the hard heart. It is not where you have arrived after drifting. It is, very often, the final stage before something opens that could not have opened any other way. Most people who find this channel have already tried the standard prescriptions, who have practiced the practices and still found themselves in the same place, harder, not softer, further, not closer. If that's you, you're not behind. You might just be further along than the standard diagnosis can see. Hearts whisper for whoever is somewhere the usual answers don't reach.